Rotorua ahead in tonight's bulletin. A public meeting is being held in Ngongotaha next week to discuss the cases of elderly residents who've been targeted by scammers. The mayor of our sister city, Beppu in Japan, Mayor Hamada, has spent the day visiting some of the geothermal attractions in our city, and Central Bay Softball are planning an open day for the 1st of November. Local police, Age Concern and Neighbourhood Support have called a public meeting in Ngongotaha after a number of elderly residents have been targeted in what's been described as a series of scams. Age Concern's Hilary Turler says the scams involve elderly being fed sob stories, then being asked for money, which they feel obliged to give. She says up to 6 or 7 families have been affected by the scam. Ngongotaha resident and District Councillor Charles Sturt says he's outraged by the scandalous behaviour of the scammers, who he says live in the Ngongotaha community.
Well, in Ngongotaha at the moment we've got 3 European women preying on the elderly group of mainly men and coercing them into giving them substantial amounts of money with sob stories of, oh, the car's broken down, I've just come up from Christchurch, I lost my house, etc., etc. And of course these men, or these people, these victims, I call them, are the type that want to give and are givers rather than takers. They're very vulnerable, and they're giving out tens of thousands of dollars. In one case, over $100,000 in 18 months. So it's of real serious concern to the community. So serious that next week we've called a meeting at the St Barnabas Church at 10 o'clock on Tuesday for the elderly to come along and be made aware by Age Concern, and they will come along and espouse what's going on. The police are also involved because we think this is very serious. And I've had family members coming to me personally, one in particular in tears, saying they can't get their family member to say no.
And the public meeting to help the elderly being targeted by scammers in Ngongotaha is on next Tuesday, the 14th, at the Barnabas Church Hall, starting at 10:30 a.m. The mayor of our sister city, Beppu in Japan, Mayor Hamada, has spent the day visiting some of the local geothermal attractions in our city. Beppu is similar to Rotorua with its geothermal activity, and the mayor's visit is hoped to inspire ideas for developing our own local capacity. This morning, Mayor Steve Chadwick gave Mayor Hamada a guided tour around Quedo Park.
There is no Beppu designation in Rotorua, but we've been a sister city for 27 years. So we both agree that we will start this development jointly. And Hamada-san sent his plans to me following my visit in April, and we've begun to develop the plan to our own kitchen, Beppu kitchen, here in our onsen development. So it's a great thrill to be here with the delegation to announce that this will be furthered and we'll work on this jointly together.
The Rotorua Youth Hostel Association is in the running for a $50,000 grant from the Hosteling International Sustainability Fund, but needs your vote to win. Hostel manager Hayley Bloor says they hope to fund a geothermal renewable energy project, but are competing against 12 other countries for the grant.
Why are we going to vote for this establishment? There's a few reasons, obviously, to make this establishment more environmentally friendly. Using our natural resources, we currently heat our hot water through gas and electricity. Using the geothermal bore is a lot more sustainable and a lot more environmentally friendly.
To vote, visit the Hosteling International website. In sport tonight, a softball open day is being set up by the newly organised Central Bay Softball. Secretary Leanne Mullins told City News recently that registration evenings had been a success, with T-ball and junior and intermediate teams set up, but they are still short on senior players. For more information on playing or the open day, find Central Bay Softball on Facebook or visit sportsground.co.nz/Central Bay Softball. To your weather, Rotorua, tonight. Rain, northwesterlies freshen, overnight a low of 11. Tomorrow, Thursday, early rain, then fine. Winds turn southwest, a high of 17 and low of 6. Outlook for Friday, fine, a few afternoon showers, light winds, a high of 17 and low of 10. Marine forecast for Lake Rotorua, southwest 15 knots, easing to 10 knots later in the day, waves less than half a metre, poor visibility and early rain, then fine. Still to come in tonight's show, we find out about the latest Excel initiatives to help children's education in Rotorua. We speak with Chairman Leith Comer. Melanie catches up with local personality Kingy Biddle, and we have highlights from the weekend's Age Concern Expo.
E-learning. Why is it important and why do we need to make this change? By the way, what is Excel? Here to answer these questions is Leith Comer, one of the driving forces behind this new initiative. Leith, thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome.
Please educate us, educate the Rotorua community. What is this initiative about?
Well, first of all, let me tell you a little bit about Excel. The government about 2 years ago decided that they wanted to do some social sector trials to see whether or not they could deliver a whole lot of money in that social sector area in a different way. And they contracted to Taumata o Ngāti Whakauē to run the social sector trial here at Rotorua, which they are doing. So the Taumata o Ngāti Whakauē is running the social sector trial. It's the only one in the country that has solely as its focus education. So when we were looking at what we were going to call this social sector trial, it started off with the name of the Rotorua Education Initiative, which we didn't think had much pizzazz. So we called it Excel Rotorua, and we came up with the catch cry of making Rotorua a great place to learn. So Excel Rotorua is the brand which sits above a whole lot of projects that we are doing, all aimed at making Rotorua a great place to learn. Coming to your specific question, when we were looking at the education sector here in Rotorua, we found that there were a lot of things about it that were quite strong. Good principles, good facilities. We have better than our performance is probably slightly above the national average. Our facilities are in the right place, and we've got a community that supports its education sector. The one thing that I felt, and this was a personal view, that Rotorua lacked, is that we had this propensity to lean towards a culture of competing. The schools were competing against each other, and I think for the system to get better, we had to find a way of the schools collaborating, sharing best practice and improving rather than competing against each other. And along came this kaupapa called e-learning. And that was the thing that principals says that they are prepared to collaborate on. So the e-learning is a means to an end. It's a means to getting Rotorua into what we call a connected and a collaborative learning environment. And so that's why we chose e-learning for this particular initiative.
So e-learning is the ones that the school all settled on.
Yes.
They said, yep. We'll do that. We agree on this here. So what are some of the programs that come under Excel Rotorua?
There's a range. I think there are 14 different projects. They range from improving our learners' sight and hearing, through to improving numeracy and literacy, to trying to deal with those people who are disengaging from the education sector, to look at finding ways of linking health with education. So there is an action plan, and all of the projects are in that action plan, but there are 14 projects, and they could grow exponentially, but they're limited by the fact that we've only got so much resource, both people and money. So at the moment we have 14 projects under the Excel banner.
So then let's look at e-learning in particular. Yep. What is that going to look like? How are the schools going to interact with that, and how's the information shared?
Our vision is that all of our learners across the 46 schools are engaged with their learning, and we hope that e-learning will be a means of improving that engagement. But each of them will have their own personal learning device. They will be connected to the internet not only at school but when they go home, and they'll be supported by great teachers. And so there's a whole lot of dimensions to what we're trying to do. The first is we want to improve engagement, but particularly between our learners and education, and then our teachers, learners and education, then our whānau teachers, learners and education. As you can see, we need a far greater engagement of people in learning. We then need to look at ways of forming collaborative groupings so that we can share the best practice, because it makes no sense for having pockets of excellence in our town without sharing that around all of our schools. And then we want to encourage schools to look outside Rotorua. You know, there are things happening around New Zealand that we should be bringing into our education sector here, as well as internationally. Then there's going to be a massive need for our teachers to refine the way they teach, because this needs to be much more future focused and what they call learner centric. This is all about the learner learning rather than the teacher being the centre of the class. So those are some of the other things. We need to find ways of making sure that all of our people have access to devices and the internet, and there's going to be quite a large leadership requirement here. So all of those things are the things that we need to be doing in a mutually reinforcing way.
What I hear, the saying that comes across to me is you're only as strong as your weakest link.
Yeah.
Is that behind this? Is that what you're trying to do, is just pick everyone up so that they're all at the same level?
I think your last statement I would agree with. I'm not sure that I would agree with your former statement, but it's the last one. Okay. Is that we want a system here, an education system in Rotorua, where regardless of what school you go to and where that school is at, you will get great learning opportunities. And we want all of our schools to be of a really exceptional level.
Another thing that come across as well is you said about having the learning more inclusive of whānau.
Yeah.
And is that why the e-learning is really important, because it gets the whānau involved into the learning?
There is research that shows that when a learner takes their device home and is engaging with their own learning, the curiosity shown by other siblings, by mum and dad, by grandparents is such is that there is an attraction into that learning, and therefore the whānau does get engaged with that learning. So I think it's really important, you know, where you have a family engaging with their boy or girl's learning, you probably have a successful learner. And you also probably have a successful whānau. So where you have disengagement, then you probably have less opportunity for success. So I think engagement by the whānau in their person or their young person's learning is vital.
So is there anything that you'd like to add? Anything you believe it's really important for us in the community to know?
I think we have taken the first step. There's a long way to go. There's a lot to be done. But I think the kaupapa is right. I think we've got the right sort of people driving the initiative, both inside the school gate and outside the school gate. So I think it's just going to take a lot of effort, and I think we've got the people to make that effort.
Well, thank you so very much for your time, and thank you so much for educating us.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
New Zealand is full of wonderfully inspiring people, but none other than our very own Kingi Biddle from Rotorua. He has such a unique view of the world and has just recently taught me the name of this marae, which is Te Papa i o Uru, and behind us the meeting house, Tamate Kapua. Kia ora, Kingi.
Kia ora, well, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yes, the courtyard here is Te Papa i o Uru, and behind us we have Tamate Kapua. Nice to be here again, and good catching up with you too, Ewa.
Good catching up with you as well. Kingi, you go on adventures quite regularly, and one of your latest ones was to Kuala Lumpur. Mm-hmm. Can you let us know what was that adventure about and how did it go?
Oh, nice. Thank you very much for that question. The adventure, the journey to Kuala Lumpur was all about representing New Zealand in the Toastmasters international speech contest. Every year about 33,000 people put their hands up to enter into a speech contest, and the top 91 go to the Toastmasters International Convention. This year it was in Kuala Lumpur. The first time it was actually outside of America. So that's what it was all about, and Kuala Lumpur was awesome. I loved Kuala Lumpur. The people were so kind, so generous. The atmosphere was wonderful. As an example, I thought, for many reasons, I thought I was at home. If you could ask anybody a question and they'll answer you. There was this one time that I needed to catch a ride home because one of our meetings finished late. So the security guard for the hotel that I was at, not the hotel I was staying in, that I was at, organised a taxi for me. Just like that.
Oh, that's really heartwarming. Now, you would have went armed with a speech. What was your speech about?
I went armed with two speeches. The first speech, firstly, I didn't place in the semi-finals. That's okay. It was awesome. My first speech was the fact that you're never alone. Even when you're by yourself, you're never alone. As we know in Te Ao Māori, in the Māori world, we have two concepts, a tinana, a wairua. So I can be with you as I'm sitting here, tinana, in body, and then of course I could. They're our family who are thinking about us right now. They're with us in spirit. And so what I wanted to tell people is that even when you think you're at your lowest and you're by yourself, you're not. And then people can find strength in that. See, that's the beauty about being part of such a contest, is that, yes, it's a contest, but the biggest one is that you can share a message of hope. One of the things I like, there's a world champion who says somewhere, everyone has a story, and somewhere in the audience, someone needs to hear that story. And that's what we do. Those are the stories that we tell. I haven't had the opportunity to say the second speech, but I thought I'd have a rest next year, and then in 2016 it's off to Washington DC. So I'm not saying I'm off to Washington DC, but I'll definitely put my hand up to go on that journey.
So at the moment you're doing radio.
Yes.
You're obviously enjoying it.
Yes.
What new have you brought to the play with radio?
You're really awesome questions. Awesome questions. I've been away from radio for about 2 to 3 years. Being part of Toastmasters and being part of the World Championship of Public Speaking, I've been exposed to many speakers, many inspirational speakers. And what I bring now on to the radio station, as an example, before I left, I was about interviewing people about issues of the day. Now I'm about interviewing people about issues of the day, and secondly, about inserting inspirational messages to lift people and to lift their day. So at the end of the day, I have a little karakia. Thank you for this day, and please bless those who are listening so that their day gets a bit better. Thank you very much. You're awesome. Things like that. It's wonderful. I think the world is experiencing that it's okay to be vulnerable now. I think that's a change that we're experiencing. Why? Because we're sharing more. Yes, the world's getting harder, but more people are starting to share of themselves. So if a person who broadcasts to many people around Rotorua can do it, allow myself to be vulnerable, then maybe everyone can take the hint. The hint, how nice.
So it sounds as though you're actually helping to evolve the way we think and the way we view ourselves and the way we communicate. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, yes, because it's the Rotorua that I grew up in, is the Rotorua that you could walk through town and everybody would stop what they were doing, wave out to you, and you would wave out to them. That's the Rotorua that I know and love. Now, times have changed. I'm not saying, so let's get a time machine and go back. But I think those values, if those values are returning in this modern day world, and if I can be part of that waka too, then hey, push that on-air button and start letting those messages rip.
Well, as you said, Kingy, it's about shining. So thank you so very much for shining and for sharing the messages that you have with the rest of the Rotorua family. And it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you very much for this time. It's awesome. Thank you very much.
Highlights there of the Age Concern Expo held on last Saturday at the Sound Shell, marking the International Day of the Older Person. If you have any news you would like to share with TV Rotorua, please contact us at news@tvrotorua.co.nz. From all of the team here, thanks for watching, and Paul Marie.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.